Hey guys, welcome to another video on the Inside Spurs channel. I'm Andy, your host, and we're talking today Manchester City coming back for Pedro Porro. We'll be talking a little bit about potential updates on the Savinho price as well. So a little bit of good stuff to talk about today. Obviously, we posted twice yesterday, talking quite a few transfer chats, rumours, Robertson, all that stuff. So if you missed it, go back and have a watch. But anyway, let's talk Pedro Porro. So actually, weirdly, it came out from a few different sources, but the first one would I always get this wrong, so bear with me. Diario AS, I think that's how I'm going to go with it. And they said that Man City have initiated talks to sign Pedro Porro. Spurs want him to sign a new contract, but have been unable to convince him so far. They'd want at least 50 million. Now, a lot of that was down to, are Spurs going to stay up? That's a given. Robertson didn't join because he wasn't sure Spurs were going to stay up. Senesi was only going to join Spurs if they stayed up. You can see there's a common denominator here. It's about, are you going to stay up? And if not, then I don't want to join you, which, to be honest, I get. I do. In Senesi's case, it was like, well, my contract ends in the summer. I'll just move then. Robertson was a bit different in that regard because we were really trying to get him. But with this, obviously it's been announced that yes, it is true from Paul O'Keefe, saying that the interest is real. Now, obviously, I feel like there was a bit of contention with Porro and Guardiola. Obviously, Guardiola's moved on, but also Nunes last season for Man City was probably the best right back in the league, to be honest. So it is a bit of an interesting one. Obviously, how they will look next season, Man City, is going to be very different from how potentially we normally see them, because obviously this new manager, Maresca, is going to be in, and Maresca worked really well with the idea that Gusto and Reece James were quite creative threats. Is it going to be the same situation for Pedro Porro? And if that's the case, he's got someone that can do exactly what he'd want them to do. Now, I think it will be more than 50 million. I do. I don't even know if he'll leave or not. That's the other thing. So I have to wait and see on that one. I still think there's a place to sit there and say he could sign a new deal. I know there's Mickey van der Ven talks about, is there a new deal potentially on its way because of survival? We'll have to wait and see. I don't know with the Pedro Porro one. I do not know. But there is supposedly it's a 50 million starting price. Sorry, I've just read that. It's a 50 million starting price. So there you go. 50 million is what they want as the initial deal. And then there'll be add-ons and maybe a sell-on or something like that, where now you're sitting there going, okay, the deal's more like 65. So okay, that's fine. That makes me feel a little bit better. But we'll see on Pedro. I still think there's a good chance of signing a new deal. I know there was other ITKs saying something similar. But on Savinho, obviously we're in a situation where we talked about him the other day, and I think this is a good thing to bring in as well. So we talked about him the other day that we're interested in Savinho. What does that deal look like? Well, obviously, Anthony Gordon being sold by Newcastle to Barcelona, by the way, that feels like a FIFA career mode move whenever I've sort of seen one. Obviously, could open the door to a potential Savinho bid from Newcastle, okay? Now, supposedly, the reason why the deal was going to be around that sort of 70 million mark was Pep's way of warding off our interest. Apparently, he had sort of said, I need him. Okay, if we're going to sell him, I want this. And Spurs probably were like, yeah, actually, all right, we'll give you that. And he went, oh, okay, no, I didn't think you were actually going to give me it. No, you can't have him, all right? So, obviously, Pep being moved out of the way, Savinho signed a long-term deal, bit of a pay rise, probably their way of saying, thank you for staying, we really appreciate it, let's make it a little bit more worth the while. Supposedly so, there is a rumour or rumours floating around that the deal will be no more than 60 million. Okay. Now, the chatter is around it could be 60 if you throw in add-ons, and things like that. The deal will be somewhere around 45 to 50. Kind of, to be honest, think of the Porro deal. 50 million starting, maybe it's about 60. It'll be something similar for Savinho. And he wants to move from Man City, and he does want a Spurs move as well. Again, these things can change. I'm not sitting here saying it is absolutely guaranteed. It's not an absolute guarantee he is joining or anything like that. But definitely there is a point to say. There's more and more reports saying that he is wanted at Spurs and he wants Spurs. So there you go. A little bit of good news on that. So obviously, bit of a Pedro Porro update. We'll have to see on that one. Is he going to sign a new deal or not? Obviously, if you have a situation where you can get someone comparable for cheaper and you can spend that money elsewhere, then obviously there's a discussion to be had. But if not, I don't see the value in that move whatsoever. You have Spence and Porro, you have a Doggy and what's going to be Robertson for next season. That's good enough. Absolutely. You're not winning the league next season, so that's absolutely good enough to try and get some European football. Your centre halves, obviously Mickey and Danso and Senesi. We'll see about Romero and Dragojin, what happens there. What happens with, obviously, interest that we have in other centre-backs at the moment going on. You start to look at attacking. You got Kudus coming back, and you could have a Savinho situation. You're still at Tel and Odebears to come back. The squad starts to bulk out a little bit, so Spurs are going to have to move on some players. They're not playing 3 times a week next season, so there's no need to be having, sometimes 3 in each position. So we'll see on that. But Spurs are active. Spurs are moving quickly, and Spurs are also moving some players that maybe are happy to move quickly, if you know what I mean. So we'll wait and see. But thank you very much for joining me. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and I'll speak to you all soon. Talk a lot more about Spurs. Take care. Peace.